Welcome everyone to episode 14 of the I almost said UFC. We're not sponsored by UFC.
I wish.
Episode 14 of the Pinnacle Combat Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jim, and I'm here with my friend, Daniel. How are you,
I'm
Daniel?
right here. What's up, dude? What's going on? I'm excited. Can't wait.
Oh, it's a big day. UFC 303
It
is
is.
finally here, huh?
It is here. Yep.
Let's go.
Oh, yeah. Feels like Christmas.
Oh, I love
I'm
pay-per-view
big.
days.
Same, but I'm a big fan of this card in general, just top to bottom. Like all the fights that I'm looking at, I'm like, God damn, this is going to be.
Yeah, and actually,
Yeah.
while we were just talking about this before we hit record, the odds, like you were just saying, I just jumped on DraftKings.
Yeah.
Well, it started out by talking about Peyton Talbot. He's a negative 1,600 to win his fight, which is wild, and we'll talk more about him later. But all of the main card odds are like at 100, negative 100, 120, whatever it might be. It's all basically like pick'em fights, which is awesome.
Pretty much. Yeah, it's just a shade. A lot of them are just a shade off of pick'em. I think there's one pick'em maybe at least.
Yeah. The girl
Yo-
fight is
Bueno Silva.
110. Yep.
Yeah, that's a pick'em, but everything else is like just a shade above, which is just like, it essentially is a pick'em. So it's like, it's going to be a great card.
Yeah.
It's a lot to get into too. A lot to talk about with this card.
But before we get into that, where I wanted to start is just giving respect to all the Hall of Famers this week.
For sure.
Obviously it's International Fight Week in Vegas, which they do usually every year except for the pandemic, I think. But for people that don't know, this is where they do like the Fan Expo. They obviously have a big UFC card that surrounds the whole thing, and they usually induct some Hall of Fame inductees that week. And we could talk a little bit about some of these guys and girls. So this year they inducted Wanderlei Silva, Frankie Edgar, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Mauricio Shogun Rua, and then they inducted a fight between Anderson Silva and Chael Sonnen into the Hall of Fame as well. We did a whole episode on Shogun, so if you want to listen to that, you can go back to one of our flashback episodes and listen to that. But Wanderlei Silva, man, I know we're probably eventually going to do a flashback on most of these people, but give us maybe some of your favorite moments of each of these people, each of these fighters.
Okay, I'll start, like, that was the name you just mentioned. Wanderlei, I'll start with. Wanderlei was one of the first fighters I watched, and I was like, oh, this guy, like, make no mistake about what he was meant to do. Like, this guy was meant to fight. And then, like, his nickname was the best. Like, obviously you saw it more so in Pride, but that roll he would do with his hands was just terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
If he was standing in front of you, you'd be like, Jesus, like, or at least, I feel that way. But yeah, I would say probably like number one moment for him was when in UFC remember when he stopped Vitor Belfort with that like flurry where he just like kind of like just sprinted at him. But then, or no, I'm sorry, that was when he got stopped by Vitor. What was I thinking about with Wanderlei? He was just like, he was unreal, man.
So
he was such a fun.
the thing about him for me is like you just said, if this was back in the day, he was going to war, he'd be on the front lines.
That's the guy, yeah.
Like,
oh my God, yeah.
Like, if you had a general and you're like, who's going to be my guy to inflict the most psychological, warfare on our opponent, I'd put Wanderlei right up front with his big head tattoo and his, like the roll into the fist, like you said, like.
God
he was
damn,
dude, like he was a rabid animal out there. It was crazy. So, yeah.
He was just like, that was one of those guys where it's just like, it's almost like where that stems from. Like there are fights on the card or fighters on the card where you're like, oh, I don't miss a Justin Gaethje fight. If he's fighting, I'm watching that card. He was like one of the first of that where you're like, oh, Wanderlei's on the card? All right, well, that's a good start. It doesn't even matter who he's fighting because he's going to bring it. So someone's going to be having to fight for their life. That's how he fought. Like he just was. There was no breaks.
Yeah.
But
it was all
just
guns
absolute
a-blazing.
legend. Oh my God, absolute legend. And then it's like talk about. I mean, Jesus, we might as well transition to Frankie Edgar. It's like talk about like a he was amazing back in the day because it's like a lot of people don't realize a lot of the newer fans maybe they watched him get stopped by some newer fighters and it's like you didn't really see Frankie Edgar in his prime, but it's like he was one of the most impressive MMA fighters in his day because
The
everyone he fought was had an advantage physical.
the answer,
Oh my God,
Frankie
man.
Edgar.
Every guy was bigger than him, it seemed like a lot bigger. Like I met him a couple times. He's not a big guy.
Hmm.
He's not at all a big guy. And it's like I've also met fighters that he fought, and I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Like they're way bigger. So it's like he was just an absolute pioneer. Where it's like you got these fighters that are like turning down fights if someone misses the weight or whatever. It's like as far as he's concerned, no one was weighed. No one weighed what he weighed that night when he was fighting him.
Yeah.
So it's just like he was just an amazing. And it's like if you want to watch that one fight that would stick out for him for sure, we could always go back to Vanderlei, but it's like just pick one. Just look at highlights for him because he was just so terrifying. But like Frankie Edgar when those Gray Maynard fights,
I was just gonna
that
say
shows
Maynard,
you
yeah.
the craziest heart. Like unreal, man.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest part about him. Like you said, he didn't have. I mean, physically, he didn't have any advantages over the guys he was fighting. Like normally, like
Seriously,
he's just a
just pace.
normal guy, small normal guy with a lot of heart and a lot of hard work. And I think we talked about this before, but um, I remember hearing he was one of the first guys where his camp would change up their codes or whatever that they would say
Yeah,
during the fight. Every
that's
single
a great
fight was
point. Yeah,
a totally different strategy. They literally took it on as a project. Every fight was a different project. We're going to approach it differently. We're going to have different fight codes. What I mean by codes is like they'd yell out a word, and Frankie would know what combination that was,
yeah.
and where to go with the fight. And every single time it would be different. Which is kind of like inside baseball shit, which is kind of cool.
Oh, it's awesome, dude. And you think about that because it's like, so live, you can't capitalize off of anything he's saying. And then also when you're watching tape of his fights leading up to your fight with him, you can't take anything from that.
Yeah.
So it's all going to be different.
Yeah.
So all this like things that they're yelling, it's going to mean nothing because, well, it's going to mean something, but you won't be able to figure it out until you're in it. So it was a very smart way of preparation. That was that dude, Mark Henry. He had like his own pizza shop, and he's just so Jersey, like his own pizza shop, and then just training like an absolute killer. Like that's a funny week if you're like just following him around at speed. But
and shout out to my friend Tony. Frankie Edgar was one of my friend Tony's
oh,
favorite
that's cool.
fighters. So he would always, even towards the end, he's like, "I got Frankie in this one." I was like, "You sure, man? I don't know."
Well,
but
it's even like it's not to the same level, of course, but it's like I'll be rooting for Arlovsky again tonight, like I always do. Like it's just like
yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, and I'd always
I
root
totally
for Frankie, but I'd just be worried.
100%.
Like, I don't want to see him.
Yeah, towards the end.
See him get to one of those people who's fighting when they probably shouldn't be fighting. And arguably, he went right up to the line of that. I think he had maybe 2 fights he shouldn't have.
Oh, he did. Yeah,
Yeah.
like you can't tell a guy like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I mean, you can't be fighting at that stage of your career. A guy like, in my opinion, a guy like Corey Sandhagen. Just this is too dangerous. Like I said, how do you say that to someone?
I know.
That's why I kind of wish the UFC. I don't know how you do it. Whether it be age, whether it be these weight classes, but it'd be so cool if they did some type of legends divisions or like some type of just legend fights. They don't have to be like full divisions. But that way, like these guys that are still towards the end, there's so many of them, they'd still be able to compete against fighters that are like, it's a little more equal as far as that goes. Cause it's like, I don't know. I don't get excited when I watch guys that are heroes that I watched for like 10, 15 years. And then they're fighting this 27-year-old killer that it's going to be just a tough one to watch. That's kind of what I thought was going to happen with Sandhagen. And then I'm blanking on the other name. The guy he fought that's just super tough too. He was a young, was it Gutierrez?
Oh, that knocked him out cold?
Name. Yeah, it's like, he's a big dude too. It's like, these guys are they're getting so evolved. It's just, That's why you got to keep it in eras. You got to talk about it in a like kind of in a separate way,
Mm-hmm.
because you can't compare these guys. It's a different era, different guys are fighting. It's like you're looking at like those two guys that'll be fighting for the lightweight champion. Um, that's kind of a good example. Like Armin Sharukian when he fights Islam Makhachev. Makhachev's like one of the best fighters pound for pound in MMA, all of MMA.
Yeah.
And you watch Sharukian's right there with him because they had a close fight. So it's like these guys are just so evolved. It's just a different game now, which is, I mean, it's great for us to watch, but I never get excited when I watch some of the legends fight a little too long, and then you're like, oh, they're fighting that guy. I don't want to see that. Like,
Yeah.
you know, but
Uh,
it's absolute legend. I mean, Frankie Edgar, we watched him live. We watched him fight a couple times live.
yeah. Love
Yeah.
Frankie Edgar. Next on
Oh
the
yeah.
list, Joanna Jędrzejczyk.
Oh yeah.
I
Boogie
mean, come
Woman.
on. Thug Rose and Joanna,
Joanna.
that was amazing. Even though
Yeah, those are great times.
Joanna lost, they were great fights. But arguably one of the best fights in the history of the sport was her and
Yeah.
Zhang Wei Li. Crazy.
100%. Oh my
Crazy.
God, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Joanna was amazing, man. Like even when she had her time, that's why that Rose moment and that whole thing that she had with Rose was so amazing. Because when it was going into that fight, Joanna was just, everyone looked terrified of her. And you have Rose just standing in front of her, just stone face.
Praying.
And then
Remember,
she ends
she's
up beating
praying.
her. Yeah, dude, that's so
Yeah.
crazy.
And there was a reason why they called Joanna the Boogie Woman, because she literally all right. And I love Thug Rose, always have. Going into that first Thug Rose fight, I was like, dude, if Thug Rose can't do this, which I wasn't betting on her. I think she was a huge underdog, if I remember correctly. I was like, I don't think anyone's beating Joanna for the next 5 years. I don't know who the hell is going to beat her. And then obviously what happened. But I remember, she was so great at the stare downs too. She'd come up from low and just come up right in your face with her fist right there. And oh my God, I was shaking, She was so good.
That she would do it, what was amazing about that was you'd get everyone excited for the fight. At the same time, say you don't know what that's doing to your opponent.
Oh yeah.
Because she had certain fighters where you could tell they didn't really want to be in there. Even though when she Esparza, who had a great career, and she beat fighters that even Joanna lost to, I believe. But it's like that fight in particular was crazy.
Yeah.
When Joanna took that belt, I was like, Jesus, man, who's gonna beat her? And then you found out like Shevchenko had was it kickboxing match? Was it kickboxing or Muay Thai? Then she had like some type of fights with I believe it was Shevchenko.
I think so, yeah.
They had fought multiple times and she had lost. So it's like that might have been the only girl rather that seemed like they could beat her. And then Rose comes along, like you said, the whole praying thing was crazy.
And she's sitting in her corner. I'm the best. Yeah. It's like, dude, the mental preparation for Rose. I mean, she's always been, but Joanna, man, she was something else, man. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
And then
a big part of women's MMA that might not get discussed as much. She helped blow up it.
Absolutely.
Like Rose did it, but Joanna really got that thing going too. So they all have their own part in it,
And you know what's funny? Now that I'm thinking about it, like Joanna and Vanderlei are very similar in terms of like their persona. You know, like that whole like it's going down. Like you always knew Joanna was ready, like she was game, and she was scary. It's kind of the same way. Like if there was a woman's army out there, she'd be at the front lines too, and you'd be terrified.
Oh hell yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. They almost looked like they were pissed off that their opponent took the fight. They're like, how dare you even? Think you got a shot, man.
Let's chat a little bit about Anderson Silva Chael Sonnen fight. Back in 2010, UFC 117. Do you remember? Well, I'm sure you remember the fight and watching it and thinking, I don't know, it was just crazy. What do you remember about watching that fight?
Oh, their first matchup.
Yeah,
it was crazy. Yeah, it was nuts. I can't remember if we knew about Anderson Silva's injury or injuries going into that, because didn't he have like a pretty bad rib injury? that we either
I
found out
don't
maybe
think
after or something?
I don't think we knew during.
Okay. Because it almost looked like we were just kind of confused as to what was happening. As far that's at least how I was taking it a lot. I was just confused what was going on. Like obviously you know what wrestling does, but it just seemed like Anderson Silva was just he had the total package. Like but it was amazing. You couldn't I don't know, man. I don't know about one other example of someone that lost literally every second or minute, however you want to word it, lost every second of a fight and then won it. Like he was not winning any parts of that fight. He
Yeah.
was even getting outstruck, which was wild.
Well,
On the feet.
so people, I don't know. For people who are new to the sport, who weren't watching back then, I mean, everyone knows, even the newer fans probably know Anderson Silva. But when you were watching him, he was the first, in my opinion, the first, like, dominant, well, besides maybe GSP, but just dominant fighter. Like, in the stand-up game, there was nothing you could do. It seemed like there was nothing anybody could do about his style. And he was, again, one of those guys that, like, we didn't think he was ever going to lose, ever.
Absolutely, 100%.
And
And
then,
Jim, I'll say one thing. It was almost like Anderson Silva. Well, this will be like a callback for later. It's almost like Anderson Silva was using some type of magic, Jim.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, this would be a callback for later. But
Oh my God, keep going. Sorry.
but then Chael Sonnen, I mean, this is really what put him in the limelight at the time, was because he's so charismatic and he came in with so much confidence in his wrestling and his ability and just the way he was on the mic. Chael Sonnen was arguably one of the first, great just talkers before Connor was around or anything like that.
Yep. Yep.
And that's where he made his, like, basically big time debut, was against Anderson and all the shit talking he did to Brazil and everything. And then he went in there and he dominated for basically all 5 rounds. And the closest comparison in a fight that people may have seen recently is Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman, the first one.
You know what? That's great. I didn't think of that at all in the moment. But yeah, no, that's a very good. That's another one. Yeah.
It's like, I mean, Kamaru had that fight literally won. If he just ran away for the whole 5th round, it was unanimous decision all the way through. But then great champions come through and they do what needs to be done at the right times, clutch moments, because that's how good they are. And Leon Edwards obviously threw that head kick that shocked the world. But this one was kind of the opposite, because the favorite won. Anderson was favored to win that fight by a landslide. And he was basically on his back for 4.5 rounds. And then within a minute left of the very last round, he throws a triangle up and submits Chael Sonnen to win the fight. It was insane.
Yeah. Chael Sonnen's weakness. No, that is his. Not just submissions. It seems like the triangle chokes were a problem for him. But and it showed there. Got him. But I suppose that's kind of like normal with wrestlers, because they take guys down. Obviously, they're on top. Obviously, but they're also kind of posting on them. So they're kind of giving them wrist control. They're kind of giving them their arms. So it's like, hey, kind of like brace up on them. It's I don't know, but maybe if you watch that fight again, you could see it getting closer and closer and not realizing it. Because in the moment, I honestly didn't think it was going to happen.
Yeah, I agree.
It didn't seem like it was going to, but that was amazing. And I'll never forget that. There's that one line in particular. It just made me laugh when it was just so dramatic. Like, Anderson Silva, you absolutely suck, when you got on the mic. It's just so funny.
That's like 80s pro wrestling. Yeah. That's 80s pro wrestling right there.
That just cuts deep. You absolutely suck. Not just, really dig that, twist that thing.
But, I mean, congratulations to all these guys in the Hall of Fame, and Lady Joanna. Sorry.
Did we mention all of them, Jim? Is that all?
Yeah, well, besides Shogun. But we did a full episode. Yeah, we did a whole episode on him, so you can go back and listen to that. But congratulations to all of them.
Absolutely.
Really,
all legends.
Really looking forward to seeing who gets in next year. But let's move on to this week in news, and something that I didn't have prepared that was earlier on in the week that you mentioned his name was Charukian.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's worth mentioning for
Yeah,
sure.
so to everybody's surprise, Charukian got suspended for 9 months, and I think he got a fine of $25,000 because in his last fight he hit a fan on his way
That
out to
flipped
the
him off.
ring.
Yeah.
Yeah, that flipped him off or something. I don't know what he did, but I guess he can appeal or something like that and get his suspension diminished to 6 months, right?
Yes, something like that. If he does like an anti-bullying, which kind of sounds ridiculous,
Yeah.
but that's not. That's kind of if you really look at what happened, it's like that person should not have done what they did. Should he have done what he did? No. But these guys from these other countries don't play that shit at all. Like that's what people don't understand either. Because he'll do that in the street to you. If you just walk up and flip him off like that, he's going to punch you. Those especially like the from those that side of the world, they don't do that American shit talk the same way. So, like I don't know what I. That's what kind of sucks about that. So I'm like, it's like, but you have to do something because you can't have that happen
Yeah,
like ever.
you
But
kind of have to set the
it's
precedent if you're UFC,
100%. Yeah,
you
you
know,
have to. I totally get it. But the
especially when you're
anti-bullying thing was kind of made me laugh.
especially when you're a combat sport. Like the
Yes.
chances of
Yeah.
something going way out of hand violently at one of your shows is way higher than any other sport. You kind of
Yes.
have to nip that shit in the bud right away, you know?
Oh, 100%. I hate that people do that. So like, yeah, you're never gonna stop it. Like people are just shitty, but it just kind of sucks that you shouldn't have done it. So keep it that way. But it just kind of sucks when you see something like that happen because it almost took the fight from us. Seems like it'll still
Yeah.
happen around the same time it was meant to, but you don't want that because it's like people will say, "Oh, that's being dramatic." It's not really because if that fight is pushed maybe a couple more months, enough to where the champ doesn't want to wait or the UFC doesn't want to wait, and they give someone else to each guy, and then one of them loses, that fight not might not materialize again. It's like it's important.
Yeah, and for
Um,
Charuki, and he might, like we've talked about many times before, if this is your only chance at that title,
you
then
lose a championship fight over that. That's
yeah,
stupid.
you lose a lot of
Yeah,
money, you lose, your opportunity, your career, like it really does come down to that for these guys.
100%. He's the one at fault the most, and I don't want to like understate what he did. Like I'm not trying to say what he did was right, but it's just like you play a stupid game, you win a stupid prize. Like I hate that that's allowed. Like I
Hmm.
wonder what happened to that dude. Did he get kicked out that night? Is there something going on with him?
Oh, I don't
I
know. Yeah,
wonder.
probably not.
That's just kind of yeah, it sucks. But I would imagine maybe you got kicked out,
Yeah.
um, but still, it's just like don't do that to these guys. Why are you doing that to that? Like, what do you think's gonna happen? Like, what do you think the guy that punches people for a living is gonna do if you just stick your middle finger in his face when he's walking out to do exactly what he does for a living?
Well,
He's all jacked up and adrenaline's high and probably
it's
didn't even think. You
yeah,
know?
and it's just like comedy shows. People that are there they want to be part of the show, not just there to see the show. So they have to do
Yeah,
something,
yeah,
dumb to like get them riled up so that the show's not about them. They want the show to be about them now. And it's just dumb, man. I
it's
don't
just
know. It's
shitty.
just,
Yeah, you'll never remove it. I'm just saying. I would just want it. It was important to mention because I think a lot of people be like, "He's a dumbass." It's like there's so many layers to that. Like
hmm.
you know, like the number one thing is the adrenaline. That guy is going out there for a fight, and he is probably running high, and then that happens in front of him. He's probably just all jacked up, and I'm not making excuses. You just gotta you gotta look at it objectively.
Just make better decisions
But he definitely has to make better decisions. Yeah. But
on
it
both
just sucks because
sides.
you
On
just don't
both
want anyone to
sides.
try him.
On both
100%.
sides. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah, fuck that guy for doing that, man. What a dumb decision. Imagine there were, if everyone just let it happen, though. What would happen to you? You'd be dead, dude.
Yeah.
Don't do that. But let's get into this, Jim. There's a lot to talk about with this fight. I'm pumped.
I
This
know, but I
card,
got I
rather.
got one more thing.
Oh,
One
my
more
bad.
thing?
My bad.
One more thing before we get into
You do too.
tonight's stuff. And I know
All
we've
right.
been running long. We're 25 minutes in now. Um,
People could fast forward if they don't want to hear us talk about legends, even though we did ramble,
yeah,
but
yeah.
you gotta pay respect,
Yeah, you have to.
you know?
But other than the fights happening tonight, the biggest news this week was the reveal of some of the art and everything for the Sphere. It looked
Yeah.
fucking crazy.
Just try to
So
go.
the Sphere show that UFC is doing is going to be September 14th for Mexican Independence Day, and apparently it's their first what is it called? It's their first they're partnering with Saudi Arabia,
Hmm.
and so it's called Riyadh Season Noche. So a big Saudi Arabia is basically funding a lot of this event, which is great. Well, I don't know. That's a whole other thing that we could get into with Saudi Arabia being involved in so many American sports now. But
The name's
I
tough,
I don't think
but
it's so
obviously reason.
bad for UFC because it's a big international sport. So like, I think it's great that they had the Saudi Arabia card a couple last week and that they were able to have some fighters over there that it's just easier for them to go to Saudi Arabia than it is to fly all the way out to Vegas every couple months. Um, and if they got the money and they want to put on some amazing events and get people paid, like that's always good too. But this looks crazy, dude. That
Oh,
whole
it's amazing.
artwork that they had going and spinning and stuff, it looked like the Mayan calendar. It,
Oh, remember that, Jim? Remember that? Remember 2012? Was it
2012,
2012?
yeah.
We thought we were done for.
Doomsday.
It was a calendar that wasn't finished.
But yeah,
Well, it clearly stops here.
it totally represents like old Mayan
It's cool,
artwork and
man.
stuff.
Yeah,
It's so cool and it's going to be
it really is.
awesome. And dude, I don't know how available you would be, but I'm going to seriously look at tickets.
Well, let's pivot. Let's pivot instead of we were talking about maybe doing the Perth one. Maybe we can focus on that one.
I
We
mean,
don't. We
it
could
just
try to go
depends
to
on
it or meet somewhere.
yeah, it just depends on what works for you and dates and stuff. And we can talk about that after, but I
Yeah. Oh,
mean,
yeah. We can make one work. We could pick one, whatever one we want to do. I can
obviously
make it work.
being there would be incredible. Like just I want to buy the cheapest tickets. I just want to be there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Same.
That'd be incredible.
Same. Yep. 100%. That could be the goal, Jim. I'm fine with that. That sounds amazing.
All
Could
right,
be
maybe
one once in a lifetime, Jim.
yeah, one well, Dana White says it's a one and done thing. So,
Which I think he's lying because that thing is they're gonna make so much money and they'll be like, all right, it's gonna be once a year
yeah,
eventually.
especially if they figure it out and they're going to see there's going to be more events that happen that show different techniques and artwork and things
Yeah.
that you could do. Like they just had the NHL draft there. Did you see
It's,
that?
talk about a venue. No, I didn't see it. What did I see? It was it Grateful Dead concert. I saw one video of that. Like,
Yeah.
I think it was that. Like, it's just it looks crazy inside. I don't know what they'll do with it,
So the
but
NHL draft, the way they did it was really cool. Well, so they had obviously whoever's pick was right in the front. So you had like let's say Detroit Red Wings pick number 17, whatever it was, right?
yeah,
And then they had a ring that goes around and it says the pick is in, right? And I'm sure they had music and all these sounds that go with it. But then in the middle, they had a big like the most of the screen, most of the sphere in front of everybody was like a
hmm,
live video feed of like the person coming up and accepting the so like
oh wow,
I'm thinking UFC they're gonna have a big like most of the screen is probably gonna be the view like you watching the pay-per-view there like if the camera, right?
yeah.
That'd be my guess, but I'm sure it's gonna be way more in depth than that. It's gonna be crazy.
I mean, either way, it's like, can you even think of anything that comes close as far as a live event you've been to? If you're there, like
I know.
that's got to be the top of the top. It's going to be amazing. So yeah, I'd be down to try that out. We could make that work.
And just I was thinking about it when I saw this. I was like, I wonder how they're going to translate that to pay-per-view, to TV. But I guess if they kind of did like a hard camera and they had the crowd behind cuz there's only crowd on one side, obviously.
Mhm.
I mean, they'll figure it out. I'm curious to see how they do it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they have ideas, but yeah, I I have no idea. I didn't really put any thought into that. I don't really know much about any of that, and it's just something you'll appreciate later. I'll see how they do it, but it would be interesting to see what they do with that. But the card's going to be, I mean, insane. I mean, that perf card's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
So it's like we were saying that every time with these views, like pay-per-views for the most part lately, and going forward. There's too much talent for these
Yeah.
cards not to look stacked on paper going in.
I feel like most of
You
the
know,
year this year, all the pay-per-view cards have been stacked top to bottom.
oh, pretty much, yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
So let's get
Been
into
a
that.
really been a great year in MMA. Like
Yeah.
it really has.
So
But yeah, let's get into it.
UFC 303. There's been two stories I want to talk about before we get into our fight to fight, I guess, predictions. But and we mentioned a lot of those predictions last week. But the first one is our co-main event that me and you are most excited about is Diego Lopez and Brian Ortega has changed from featherweight to lightweight literally overnight. And we were talking a little bit about this before we hit record. So I'm just going to kind of let you go. I don't know where to start with this. I guess just where do you think we should start with this?
Well, I just hope none of it's intentional. As far as like, I know there's gamemanship. I understand there's things you can do, but like if the one fighter is not under the impression that the weight's been changed, and then, like you said, they find out or someone gets in contact with them at like 3 a.m. that the fight weight has changed,
That's
and
what
they've
I heard.
already made weight, and then now it's not. So you made weight for nothing.
Yeah, John.
Did you
Anik,
already know?
John
You know, did
Anik
you know
said,
you weren't going to try?
John Anik said that Diego Lopez was in bed and at weight the night before.
Yeah.
At 1:45, and he got a call, or whoever it was got a call from whoever it was that Brian Ortega was, I don't know, whatever was going on. He was having trouble because I know he was supposedly bulking up to get to 170 and move to welterweight.
Mistake, but
so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't like a lot of these guys going up in the weight that they really have no business being in. Those 170 is as far as the way they're cutting weight still, those 170s are not close to 170. Like as far as their weight naturally. So for you to go up and think that's going to be you're going to go from 145 to 170, I just don't. I think a lot of people they get their frame in there that they can do it, but it's just like I don't. I think Ortega belongs at. I've always thought 155 could be a dangerous place for him.
Or maybe he was bulking up. Maybe he was
know,
bulking up for that. I don't know if it was welterweight. It might have been. Well,
maybe, hopefully it's 155 because when I say dangerous, I mean he's dangerous at that weight. I think.
Yeah, but in order to have an advantage there, you'd have to kind of be a welterweight and then cut down every fight. But
you figure what's Leon? What does he walk around?
I know,
He's north of 200,
Christ.
I bet.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I've seen Usman. I mean, granted, it was before he was champ, but I've seen him in Vegas walk by me. He didn't look anything like a 170. He does not look like a 170-pound person. But as far as this fight, so I was hoping it wasn't intentional like that, but it's almost like one fighter goes through their camp, makes the weight, and then it almost feels like you're trying to level the playing field. Like, I'll make him cut weight because this short notice for me, I didn't have to. I'm not saying that this was something that Ortega was thinking, but this is how it looks. It doesn't look good. Like it's not a good look for the one fighter to find out at 3 a.m. Like I don't like that. That's just, there's got to be a better way than that.
Well, I guess the only excuse would be that a lot of this card has changed and that this fight was only put on 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And the only thing I'm immediately a thought in my mind was Kevin Gastelum last week.
Yeah.
And you said even someone else today or yesterday didn't weigh in, right? Who was that?
That was Gene Silva. He's fighting Charles Jourdain. And what annoyed me about him, I'm 100% going to root for Jourdain. It's like you missed weight by, I think it was like 2.5 pounds or whatever it was, or maybe we say 1.5. I think you have the extra pound grace of like the 145 to 146. But so he jumps up the scale like he made weight, like he's all pumped and all that, and they show that he didn't make weight. And it's like, why are you? Like, I'm not saying you should be looking completely ashamed of yourself, but like you shouldn't be looking like that, in my opinion. Like that's part of your job, and that's what Jourdain was saying. He's like, it's not professional. So it's like you kind of don't root for those guys. So why you mentioned like Ryan Garcia? It's like they do these things and then they double down by being like arrogant about it. It's like not a good look, man. That's not how you're gonna get like true fans of the sport, in my opinion. I'm
And
not gonna want to root for someone that does that.
you said Jordan said that he didn't even feel like the other guy tried,
I
right?
thought that I heard him say that. Yeah, I'd have to watch it again to see what he was saying because I think he's like he's Canadian, so like his accent's a little like tough. Plus, it's like it's tough to hear it. But I thought he was saying something like that. Like it didn't even look like he made the attempt,
Mm-hmm.
which could be true if you're around 148. If you miss by a few pounds or close to a few pounds, I mean, I don't know. I don't know enough about weight cutting other than what we just kind of watch on a week to week with this stuff. But it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a good look either way.
And you know
But
what? Like I'm thinking now is like maybe it's just because it happened 2 weeks in a row, but both of these cards changed a lot, so it's harder when you don't have the preparation that you normally do.
yeah, you got to take it with a grain of salt. Sure.
Yeah. So like, but if just watch out though. So here's another thing. So normally, if you let's say sign a contract at 170 and you miss weight, you have to give like half of your purse to the other guy, right? Or
I
a
think it's like
certain
20,
amount.
30%,
Yeah, 30%,
20,
whatever
30.
it is.
Yeah. Hmm.
So does that affect the Brian Ortega? Does that affect Kevin Gastelum? Are they giving up? Are they penalized at all? Or is it because it's short notice that they kind of just let this one go? Like I don't know.
Maybe they'll let it go. I don't really know, which is like I'm fine with it because the fights are still happening. It's fine, but it's just like I just hope I don't see something tonight where you're like, oh, that looks like a guy. Because these guys that don't make weight have, I'm pretty sure, a pretty good record. Like collectively, when people miss weight, they generally do well. It's not usually the other way. I think people maybe think like, oh, he's gonna get his ass kicked for not making weight. I think you don't deplete yourself as much, so like you're probably a little fresher. I'm pretty sure if we looked it up, the record of fighters that don't make weight in the UFC, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not like it's an advantage. So it's like that's the only reason why I'd say it. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be shitty about it. I hope it's not a coordinated. I hope it's not something that's going to become a new normal when they have these like fight shakeups. Like
Yeah.
pick the weight and stick with it. Like there's a contracted weight, and then if there has to be a grace period or something. There has to be a period where it's like, all right, we can't change it now. I don't know if it's like a few days out or what it would be, but it's like, it's so unfair for someone to find that. Just like it's so unfair for a fighter to be woken up by USADA at overnight when they're 2 days removed from the biggest fight of their life.
Exactly.
There's got to be a better way than that. Like, I don't know.
Let's give props to Diego Lopez. This whole time, he
Doesn't care.
he doesn't even care. He's like, yo, Brian Ortega, top 5, top 3 in the world. Yeah, I'll take it on 2 weeks' notice on one of the biggest cards of the year. And it's like, oh, he's waking up from a fucking slumber at 3 in the morning, and they're like, hey, your boy can't weigh in at 145, so all that stuff we did yesterday, it's all for nothing. He's like,
Didn't
yeah,
have to
whatever,
happen.
I'll kick his
Yeah.
ass at 155. Oh well. I love it. I mean, I know
No, you gotta love it. And he's super talented. He could do that, but
yeah, and we're rooting for him. Not that we don't. I mean, Brian Ortega is one of the best, dude. Like, that's why we're looking forward to the fight. I think it's still going to be an amazing fight. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
it's gonna be great. You got Diego Lopez is kind of like he's like a storm you have to deal with, and Ortega is someone who is virtually impossible to finish, either way. Like you can't. Seems like you can't submit him and you can't knock him out. He's just so tough. It seems. So it's like it's gonna be a crazy fight, man. Because Lopez has not shown that he just until someone shows that they can deal with the pressure he brings. I think he's going to keep knocking people out. I don't know if it could be a setback tonight because it might be too much too soon. There's only one way to find out. So you got to appreciate guys that are taking these fights in big steps up. It just shows the confidence they have in themselves. Same with Ortega. That's a scary fight to take on short notice. So I don't want to make it seem like because he could have nothing to do with it, man. It could all be those little shady people behind the scenes that do all the communication. Which kind of sucks, right? Like kind of like we talked about with the two fighters. It almost seemed like with Volkov and Pavlovich last weekend?
Yeah.
It seemed like there was some fuckery there. They both seemed confused. So it's like you just hope there's not things like that going on. But I'm just happy the fight's happening because this is the one that I was most looking forward to. So, but I'm also just a big Lopez fan, so that's why I was kind of like, that's not the way to do it, man.
Yeah.
It's kind of bummed to hear that. But
Um,
this card's crazy, bro.
the
Like, even
other,
did you see Dulce at the weigh-in? He looks bigger than Anthony Smith, and he's coming up.
yeah, yeah.
But I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
There's one other thing that I wanted to mention was Ian Gary is accusing MVP of his team trying to get to basically what do you call it? Infiltrate the Shooter Box Academy, trying to get information
Spy.
on Ian Gary's camp and all that, and
Hmm.
he offered them thousands of dollars for information. Apparently, now I don't know why he would make something like that up,
Yeah,
but he mentioned it at the
tend to
press
think it's true.
conference. And if it is true, is there a penalty for that? I don't like. Are you allowed? I don't know if you're allowed or not, or I don't know. Bribery's kind of weird.
I would imagine that's happened 1,000 times over the years,
Yeah,
but
I'm sure. Yeah.
we've never heard about it. But yeah, no, it was kind of funny to hear that. And then this is like kind of the card of accusations. There's a lot of accusations being thrown around
Yeah.
by you got magic accusations. You got I shouldn't even say you have shaman magic, Jim, which is I feel like a different level of magic. I don't know. I'm not an expert in magic, but
I feel like that's
but
top echelon magic.
yeah, I feel like that's getting close to dark arts, dark magic.
Yeah,
Shout out to Theo Vaughn,
generational
dark arts.
dark arts.
But no, I mean this card's just we got to get into it.
Yeah, let's
It's
do it.
just
Let's do it.
yeah.
All right, so
Where do you want to start?
let's start with the main event, like we always do, with dark arts.
Yes. Oh my God, Yuri is not a fan of the dark arts, bro. He loves chocolate, but he does not. He's not a fan of the dark arts. But I mean, would you expect it? Like Yuri, well, that's one of those guys you don't want to miss a fight with him because he's so dangerous. But like, would you expect anything less from a guy like that goes into the forest and was he like Czech Republic and just punches trees? Like, would you expect anything else? Like, what are you doing in the forest, man? That's what I'd be saying if I was Pajeda. Like, what are you doing over there, dude? Like, who you hanging with? Like, you're punching trees in the forest. Like, I don't know. But
Did you
this
hear
card,
what Dana
that
White
fight,
said?
no.
He said when he's like when our guys called Yuri to offer them the fight, his team told him, and he spent 3 days in a little shack, like meditating or praying. And then his team came to get him to start his camp. And he goes, "Hey, you ready for camp? Are you ready to go?" And he's like, "This is what the universe wants." And then he stood up and just started camp.
You're like, yeah, you ready? Okay, all right.
He just stayed in his
A
shack
yes
for
would have
3 days.
sufficed, but
No food, no
oh my
water
God,
for 3 days.
dude, he's legitimately like insane and in love with the game, and like that you could tell that's all he cares about.
Yeah.
Which I'm not saying Pajeda's probably the same exact way, but he also has a family. So like I don't know what Prash was doing. I don't know if it's just him, man. It just might just be him wherever he is if he's not with his camp, training partners or just training. Like, well, I don't know what he's doing. He's befriending animals and like there's I don't know.
Yeah.
But what's cool about this fight is like as much as I'm leaning towards Pereira again just because I'm a big fan of Pereira. I think anyone that's coming into a Pereira fight looking to try to knock him out, it's a bad strategy. Doesn't mean it can't work, but it's like there's better paths. And I think if Yuri mixes it up and maybe goes for takedowns more and tries to go for like a submission or tries to go heavy on that, he'd fare better because he didn't have anything. He had no way of answering those calf kicks, which most people don't against Pereira, but so those aren't going away. If anything, there might be more. But with the other side of that said, like it won't surprise. Like if I missed this fight for whatever reason, which usually doesn't happen, and I woke up and Prochazka won by knockout, I wouldn't be that shocked. Just because how scary he is. Like you see his knockouts, you know what he's capable of. I just think Pereira's just gonna kind of show his experience, and I just think he's a little more polished and technical. Doesn't mean he can't lose, but what are you thinking about that?
Yeah,
That fight?
I mean, I completely agree with everything you just said.
Yeah,
I don't. I feel like Yuri's. I don't think he has the confidence he did in the first fight, going in at least. I don't know how much that matters. Um, I think Pereira has every reason to believe he's going to win this fight,
sure.
which
Yep.
is why he took it such short notice. I'm sure. Well, he'd probably take any
That's just
fight
him,
short
dude.
notice, but
That's just him. He's just, yeah.
I don't think he's worried about this fight at all. Now, that's not to say I think he's overlooking Yuri, because he knows Yuri's dangerous. I think Pereira's more confident now this time around, and I think Yuri is less confident this time around. Now, is that going to translate in the fight? I have no idea. And am I right? I don't know. Maybe not. But I don't know. I'm heavily leaning towards Pereira in this one.
Same. I just don't know if, as dangerous as Prochazka is with his hands, I don't know if he has. You figure he's going to have to land something, like just going to have to land one particular shot that changes the whole thing, because I just don't know if he can win a technical fight with a guy like Pereira.
Yeah,
It's not very easy to. The consequences are just so crazy. Like I said, those calf kicks are insane.
yeah,
There's zero tell, zero wind up. And you could tell immediately he lands one or two of those. Like he didn't land very many on Prochazka before he was limping
yeah,
early in that fight. So it's just, if you see that again, what does that do to Prochazka? I understand he's like a different, as far as what we see, but he's still human. So
yep.
it could bring him back to that night. You just don't know how someone's going to respond until they're put in that spot. So yeah, I'm definitely leaning towards Pereira. It's just because he's just, what he's done in the UFC in such a short amount of time. It's just like, how do you not respect it? How do you not look at him as one of the biggest names in the sport right now, just for how he's handled himself and done so much in so little time?
Yeah.
And a lot of people have done that. The person he has a rivalry with, Adesanya, same thing. He came and took the game over by storm too in his own way. But Pereira's doing something a little different with the two weights and kind of saving cards and kind of just being the most important fighter in UFC right now, I think.
I agree. Yeah.
In a lot of ways. I'm not saying the best. I'm not saying whatever. I'm just, as far as in the last couple of years, he's really saved a lot. Because I'm pretty sure their first fight materialized off short notice or because of a
John
hard
Jones?
fallout.
I
Or
think it was John Jones.
okay, it was John Jones. Sweet.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. I thought so. Okay. And I want to say even Prochazka when he won the belt, it was something weird when he got Glover. So it's like there's just, these guys have kind of shown over and over that they are guys you can count on at any time, which I would imagine these guys, I would think a lot of the smaller weights are going to have more fighters that have, I don't want to say discipline issues, but they get a little out of weight, off their weight or out of shape, as opposed to like these 205ers and those bigger guys.
Mm-hmm.
They really can't afford to do that all the time after camps. They kind of have to stay in a relative shape, I would imagine, as far as their weight goes. Maybe they don't have their wind and they don't have their cardio's not up, but that's just normal. That's just what happens when you're not pushing a crazy training camp that they would. But I just never, that's why these guys are so good for that. Like a couple weeks, you're like, hey, do you mind, you can make weight. They're like, yeah, because I normally just walk around, whatever it be, 20-ish pounds above that weight. I would imagine that's what Pereira walks around.
Yeah, he said just one day after weighing in, he's 25 pounds heavier today.
He's 230. It's so crazy, dude. Like, then they're like, can he be at heavyweight? I'm like, yeah, I think so. You see the people he's sparring heavyweights. He's sparring a 6'8" heavyweight boxer. Like, I think he could do it, man. I think there's enough evidence.
Well,
but,
3, 4,
we'll see.
3 or 4 more fights, man. Like, we could be seeing a real super fight between him and John Jones. But I don't want to get into that because we got more to talk about tonight. We just talked about this fight. Maybe not. We don't have to get too much into detail since we just talked about it. But the fight that we're looking forward to: Brian Ortega, Diego Lopez, co-main.
100%.
Who do you got? Who are you leaning towards?
It's because I'm such a big fan of him on the come up. I think he's going to be one of the biggest names going forward at 145. Like, I kind of want to see him fight these other guys. Like, And that's kind of why you don't like seeing Topuria kind of picking and choosing already, and he hasn't even fought anyone yet. It's like you got to worry about these guys coming up. If Lopez stays at that weight, which we don't know what he'll do, he could have a good showing and be like, you know what, let's try 155. I feel I'm fine with that. But if he stays at 145, that's a problem for people. So I kind of want to see him win just to see him in the mix. I've seen Ortega in the mix, so it almost seems like Ortega wants to move in weight. So a loss might do that, and he might be better suited to it. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, um, but it's also at the other side. You can't count Ortega out in any fight against anyone
No,
because
yeah.
he's very talented boxing wise, unbelievable on the ground. So he's very comfortable anywhere. You can't really make him uncomfortable. Um, so that's what's going to be interesting because what happens if a guy like Diego Lopez goes through him in the first round and you're like, holy shit, he just TKO'd Ortega in the first round. Then what do you do with him? Like, that's a huge statement. I'm not saying it's going to happen. Just you're thinking of possible, or you can see Ortega just kind of smush him. He gets that fight to the ground. You know he can submit anyone at pretty much any weight. Uh, but with that said, I'm leaning Diego Lopez. I'm a big fan of him. I just like the way he carries himself. I like the way he fights. Um, and I think we're just scratching the surface with his talent.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Jim, on that?
I 100%. I agree with you. This is
Okay.
a big opportunity for Diego Lopez. I think he's handled himself amazingly during
Hmm.
all this shit that's been going on,
Yep.
and I think and he doesn't look nervous. And all the stare downs, the weigh in, everything like that. He looks pretty confident and at home. He looks comfortable. I don't know, man. He knows he just gotta go out there and do what he does. And
Yep.
it's just whether or not Brian Ortega can weather the storm and grind him out. And he definitely has the skills to do that. And he's fought the top guys for a very long time. He's got the experience. So yeah, and where's Brian Ortega's head at? Like you said, does he
That's what
want
I'm
to
worried
move
about.
up? Is this not? I don't know. Does he have his mind elsewhere, and where his career is after this fight, or is he completely focused?
And
Yeah,
did
I
you
mean,
did
yeah,
you see that he's going to donate a portion of his purse to like a
yeah.
church, which I think is isn't it like a mega church or something in LA?
I don't
Like it's
know.
like a big church. I
Yeah,
mean,
I don't know what it is, but I think it's like $100,000 of his purse or something like that, right?
which is great. I don't know a lot about it, but does that church have a lot of money? Because these churches don't have to pay taxes. Like you're a fighter, man. Like I just don't agree with it. I know it's like he's probably a great person and just doing what he thinks. I understand like, if that's what you want to do, that is your money. But
Mm-hmm.
what scares me is like these guys don't get paid a ton in the grand scheme of things. That's one. And it's like you hate seeing these guys that are just done fighting and they don't really have much to show for it. I don't
Yeah.
know if that's him. I hope it's not him. I would imagine he'll always be fine because he'll be involved in gyms where he can always teach people jujitsu. He can teach people this, that, whatever, the other thing. Like and he's perfect for that. I hope that's the case, but you just don't want to see fighters go broke because it's a dangerous thing, man. Like we talked about James Vick. He had a bad knockout loss in that karate combat last night. And it's just, you got to wonder, is he doing it because he just loved it, or is he doing it because it's really one of the ways he knows how to make money? Because at some point commissions aren't going to be one approving these guys to fight. Um, if you can continue to get the same result, because it's not like you're not losing a game, man.
Yeah.
You're like that was a bad knockout. So you just don't want to see. That's what I worry about. Because when I saw that, I was like, oh man, I hope you're good financially. Because if you are, then I'll just shut the. I have no place to speak on it. But I just hope that that's I hope that he's fine with that. I hope that's not going to hurt later down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
kind of cute. Like it's kind of weird.
I guess we'll see. I don't know. I mean, and the thing is too with that is like when you become, you know, somewhat famous in your community. I'm sure all these guys They're like, oh, they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're on TV. They're this, they're that. Let's see if we can influence them to do something here for us and help us out or
Yeah.
whatever. And it's like,
Yeah, I got my own opinion about that.
And then they
Yeah.
feel obligated to not to do the right thing, to help their community, to be that person in their community doing these things, and like, and hey, listen, it comes from a great place, and I'm sure a lot of people need the help. Yeah, I don't know. But you don't want it to be at the detriment of your own health and safety and your family and all this stuff. But hey, again, like you said, it's his money. Everyone makes decisions. There's risk versus reward, and he feels that this is a good move for him. Then you own your decisions you make, and you go with whatever happens, and you cross bridges when you get there, I guess, right?
100%. And I'm gonna throw a dig at our boy Max Holloway. Even when we saw Max Holloway throw a fat stack at the Dallas Mavericks to win the title, that didn't happen. But we're not worried about Max Holloway because Max Holloway just got 300K bonuses. So Max can do whatever the hell he wants, bro.
Yeah.
He's fine.
Yeah.
And he's been a champ for a long time. What I'm saying is Ortega hasn't had that same. He has not had you can't argue that he has not had the same big money fights as a guy like Max Holloway.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't been a champion. He might have he's had a great career and he's flirted with it. He's almost done it. But it's not a knock on a fighter when you say they weren't champion. What I'm saying is when they're not champion, they don't make the championship purses. You make the championship fight money because you're involved in it, but you're what they say is your life changes when you become the champion. Yeah. Then you restructure everything. You're getting paid very well that first title defense compared to how you were your whole career. It's different.
And if it is true that Brian Ortega is in this weird limbo spot in his career where he is not sure what weight class he wants to be in, where he's going to go next, throwing away some of your purse. I shouldn't say throwing away because I'm sure it's going to a good cause, but it might not be a smart thing. Like if you were two fights away from a title shot, you're on the up and up. That's different circumstances, but it seems like he's kind of like in a limbo. We haven't seen him do a whole lot in the last couple years. Yeah. So I don't know.
Which is another thing. You've had injuries. You've been kind of on the shelf for a little bit. Like everyone wants to see Brian Ortega fight. So when you come back, you're excited, but it's like, you just kind of hate to see that. It's just in my opinion, you just kind of hope that that's not the case. Cause it's like, you haven't even really won. You haven't fought. So you haven't won the fight. So you don't even really know what your purse is because you're going to get a different amount when you win. So if you lose this fight, you're giving them that much off of that. Let's just say if it is a losing purse, if it's a winning, it might be different. I don't know, but I don't know. I hope it's not ugly. I just hope it's not. I hate hearing that, and I don't want to harp on it, but there's a few things that just rub me the wrong way with that card. And there was the weight cutting thing with the issues with that.
Yeah.
The blasphemous magic accusations. No, it's just it comes from a good place. I love all these fighters. I want them all to be good when they get out of the game because they are literally they're playing the most dangerous game.
Yeah.
For the most part, in a lot of ways, other than war. So it's like, or there's a few others, but you know what I mean. It's just this is not something that you can. It's a lot of these fights. Like Poirier would always say, it's like he kind of felt like that's why he was such a crazy fighter because he would kind of be open about, man, these fights, these certain crazy fights that he gets involved in, they take a little something from you. Like whether you realize it or not, whether you feel it until it's later on, but like you don't, even if you win those fights, you don't come out unscathed.
Yeah, I think it's just hard to watch being such a fan of the sport and all these guys who put their health on the line every time, and we're just sitting here like rooting them on. And it's like they're getting their heads kicked and it's hard when stuff like that happens. It's hard to watch it. It's hard to watch the downfall. When you respect all these guys and you like watching them, and Brian Ortega being one of his fight against Volkanovski was.
It's one of my favorite fights in the last handful of years. 100%, not even close. That fight was insane.
Yeah.
Just like that the heart that bolt like that fight was just it was incredible. I don't even know the percentage of what's the percentage of 145ers that tap to those submissions.
I know,
It's
right?
a
Yeah.
high number. It's a high number. Um,
But yeah, we
there might be one
yeah.
guy that gets out in his Volk, but
Yeah.
um,
But
I don't
we've
want to make
yeah.
it seem like it's just trash in one guy at all. Um, but it's just like you just hope that's not what's going on. I'll just leave it at that. But there's so much more we can get to. But
Yeah.
it's just I hope that fight doesn't show any signs of maybe looking like a fight that had issues going in with the weights and all that. I hope it just looks like the fight we are expecting. That's all. That's all I'd say. I suppose.
Yeah, and we've talked enough about that fight now. Let's move on to the next one. Anthony Smith and Roman Dolidze. You said Dolidze looks big, huh?
He did look big. Yep. It must have been that tea. He made some hot tea out in the
Out in the
desert.
desert,
He was like,
yeah.
remember? I'm going to make a fire. He's like, it's so funny.
Yeah.
Like these guys are just different, especially when they come from different countries. Like it's funny. He's like, these mountains are like in my country, but they're not as dangerous. I'm like, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Oh, definitely.
Jesus.
Yeah, yeah. It was. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. But
Yeah, no wolves.
yeah, seriously. But I like that fight, man. That fight kind of flies under it. Like
Yeah.
there's a few, the one we're going to talk about next also, but you figure if there's three fights you're talking about the most, it's the main event, the co-main event, and what kicks off the main card, which we'll get to, Gary and Venom Page. But this fight is very interesting because Delice is very good on the ground in his own right. He's very smothering, he's very good with top pressure. So it's tough because that's kind of how I thought Anthony Smith might win this fight. And then you're thinking about it, and then it's like you wonder if they'll cancel each other out. Could it be a fight where they're, for the most part, maybe standing in front of each other? I don't know what this fight's gonna. That's why I'm kind of looking forward to this one. I don't know how it's gonna go. I've been leaning towards Anthony Smith by submission, but I could just because I've seen Delice kind of. I don't want to say gas, but it just seems like he might have issues with his management of cardio.
Yeah.
He might not be tired. He just looks like he might be. So Anthony Smith is someone who he's just like, I mean, he's been in every type of fight in his career. I remember watching him before he got in UFC when he was fighting in like the Midwest where he came up. And he was a dog then and he's a dog. That's just how he wins fights. He kind of just leans on all that and just really just overwhelms people. Like it's not like he's gonna have any super physical advantages. Like no, he's a big guy, but no like crazy knockout power in the same way you talk about Pereira and Prochazka.
Yeah.
But he's just so talented. So that's gonna be a fun fight to watch. Plus he's very smart. That's why when you listen to him as an analyst, like you just wouldn't expect. Like I don't want to make it seem like it's not an insult. It's more of a compliment. But you look at a guy that looks like Anthony Smith, and you hear him talk so like he speaks so
Yeah.
articulately.
Yep. Yep.
It just doesn't look like it matches, it's great when you see. That's what's so cool about these MMA guys because they're usually well-read, very intelligent people, like men and women that fight in the sport. They have a lot going on for them, which you just think they're barbarians, but it's really not the case.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Is that fight doing anything for you?
Well,
looking
no,
forward to
yeah,
it?
it's going to be a good fight. I have a feeling it's not I have a feeling it's going to go to a decision.
Okay.
Right now on DraftKings, Dolidze is a favorite, just a slight favorite. Yeah, I don't know who I got winning though. I don't think there's going to be a finish though, so I might go with the over 2.5 on this one.
Not a bad bet.
But I don't know. Yeah, this one's 50-50 to me. I have no idea who's going to win this fight. I was very impressed with Anthony Smith's last fight.
Yes. Yep.
And I'm very happy that he took this fight in such short notice. Even though it's changed 4 times.
4. Yeah, that's crazy. I thought it was. That's wild.
Crazy. I don't know. I guess I'm rooting for Anthony Smith, but I could absolutely see it go the other way. So I don't know.
I like your decision call on that. I think if you looked at the main card in its entirety, I think that's probably the fight you'd pick if you were like, oh, what's going to go to what fight will go the distance? I'd probably bet that one too.
Yeah.
Considering everything else, but
you know what? I'm just going to go on a limb. I'm going to pick Anthony Smith.
Nice.
Who do you think is going to win?
Let's see. So I already have them all picked. So I got. Let me get in there. Shout out to that dude. You should get that verdict thing going with the picks and all that. It makes it so easy with the round scoring.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
verdict app is cool. Any fan of like just a sport in general, it's a good app to go on and kind of follow the fights with.
And
But to
they
get
are
to your
not a
answer,
sponsor. They're not a sponsor of this podcast.
not at all. Wish they were, dude. I already put my annual. I'm a premium member,
Yeah,
dude.
Dan's been on. He's a black belt, aren't you?
I'm a black belt. It's not a big deal or anything, but like I'm a black belt. I'm a black belt in picking fights and sitting on the couch high and drunk watching them. That's what I'm a black belt on. I'm good at that, dude.
Sounds about
I'm good
right.
at that. Yeah, hell yeah. And
That's
I
what
go
this
the distance.
podcast
I'll
is
stay
about.
up. I'll be awake, dude. You'll be like, how are you awake? You had 100 milligrams and you've been drinking all night. I'm like, I'm awake, dude. I'm awake. I'm ready.
I'm
So,
focused. I'm
but
in the zone.
but
I'm in
to
the
answer your
pocket right now.
not now, Chief. I'm in the zone. But to answer your question on that fight, I'm gonna go. The fight is kind of back and forth. I think Anthony Smith might have to weather a little bit of a storm, but I could see him winning by like some type of submission, like a choke or something, and towards the end of the fight. I kind of just think of how it will play out. I'm kind of leaning towards it possibly being the number one would be what you just said, going to the distance. But if I'm gonna be a little saucy, I'll take Anthony Smith in the third round by a rear naked choke.
Yeah, my
You know?
my whole decision for picking Anthony Smith as the victor is all it's on is experience.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Been there, done that.
but yeah, let's move on to the next fight. We got the two ladies on the card, Mayra
Yes.
Bueno Silva and Macy Chasen. What do you think?
I know you like Macy Chase on a lot. I don't know if it's Chase on or not. I have to hear it again. Once I hear it once, and you know who I hear it from? You got to hear it from our boy John Anik. Talking
Yeah.
about someone who pronounces everything he nails, dude. He's such a professional. That dude's the man. And he's from Mass, isn't he? Shout out
Well,
to
he's
that.
a Celtics fan. I know that. I don't know where he's from
Of
exactly,
course.
but yeah.
Of course, baby. I believe he's Massachusetts boy, but either way, this fight I'm leaning towards Bueno Silva. I think she's I like her fighting style. I think she's a really good fighter. So I'm gonna take her. And how do I see it? You know what? I see her also winning by a submission. I'm gonna go round 2, Jim.
Round
To be
2 by
saucy.
submission. Okay.
All right.
See, I don't know why, but I think Macy Chasen is the more technical fighter. I don't think she's the more like. See, because I could see Macy Chasen winning by like rear naked choke in the second or third as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's what makes these fights so good when they get to this point in all these weight classes, we're all this like say top 5, top 10, top 15, right around that bubble there. Even when they're outside the 15, any of these guys and girls that are in those weight classes can beat any of the other fighters any given night.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's just it might not have been as obvious, but like when a guy like Adesanya gets hurt by Strickland so early in that fight, that changed the whole complexion of the fight.
Yeah.
I didn't see it happening that way, but you land one shot that hurt someone. It might not have dropped them. It might not have even staggered them, but it clearly changed how that fight went.
Which is
from that moment on.
Which is what you mentioned, with tonight in the main event. If Jiri can do something like that, it changes everything. Which is why the sport's so awesome. It's just, it's great. But you got Bueno Silva by submission second round, you said?
I'll go second, sure.
Okay. I'm going to go chasing.
Round 2, baby. Take it, Jim. Take it.
No, I might go chasing split decision.
Okay. I like the call.
All right, but the opening fight.
That's going to be a close fight.
Yeah,
that's going to be a close one.
I think it's going to be close.
Yeah. I agree.
But the opening fight on the card, man.
Oh, boy.
Potentially I don't know. I was going to say the people's fight of this card, maybe.
It's definitely has a huge buzz on it, man. It's so interesting because they both look like they have a secret. Like both are so confident. They're both looking at the other like they're crazy for thinking they can beat him. So it's like it's just a perfect storm. They got him. Something's got to give.
See, I thought that early on in the week, exactly what we just said. In the last 2 days, I think Ian Gary's right, and I think he's in MVP's head. I don't
Dude,
think
it's
MVP
funny you
looks
said that.
nearly as confident as he did at the beginning of the week.
No, I agree too. I just, and that doesn't mean that like Michael Venom until they get out there, you're not gonna really. He's such a tough puzzle to crack. But Ian Gary is super talented, and you've seen him. He put beat. I mean, he didn't he stop. You saw that fight that Gas. You know how good Gastelum is with his hands, regardless of the weight issues he might have had through his career. The skill and the talent is there, and that's why people get so frustrated with him.
Mm-hmm.
Is because he's super talented. And if you just got more discipline, stayed at a weight that probably suits him better, whether he agrees or not. But he just fought D-Rod, Daniel Rodriguez, that dude,
Yep.
absolute beast.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure Ian Gary stopped him. So
Yeah.
Ian Gary is a dangerous
No,
striker.
he did, like, devastatingly.
And I understand Daniel Rodriguez and Michael Venom Page they couldn't be more opposite in terms of fighters, but the blueprint's there for a guy like Page, especially if you can. I think with him a lot of times it's well, it becomes a wave that it just becomes too insurmountable for these guys. Like I think it kind of just becomes more of a. It's not one big tidal wave; it's a series of waves, and then it's just kind of like it snowballs on people. And I think he just gets once he gets everyone. Like, I think he just gets everyone fighting out of their comfort zone. I don't know now, like you said, I don't know if we're going to see that. Ian Gary just seems like he's locked in, and it doesn't seem like he's worried about it. So this fight got even more intriguing to me.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
I kind of am still leaning towards Venom Page to win by decision. I still think he's going to do enough and be confusing enough, but it wouldn't shock me now to see Gary win this fight.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking.
Do you think there'll be a
This
stoppage?
is tough. Yeah, I'm
Do you think
thinking.
it'll be a
I think
finish?
Ian Gary's going to finish him.
Wow, that'd be talk about a statement win for him.
I'm going second round TKO.
Okay, I'm leaning my Venom Page by decision, but I could
What
I
else?
could easily see this fight being stopped by either guy because
Yeah.
Venom Page has been stopped before. Douglas Lima got him.
I
in
just
Bellator.
I just think that Venom Page is starting to feel the weight of the UFC.
Different show.
It's a
Yeah.
different place. It's a different talent pool. It's different. It's just a different. It's a different beast here, you know. And like Ian Gary says, it's like you couldn't even win a title in Bellator, and you think you're gonna come
That's
over
a
here
fair.
and make me look stupid?
That's a fair point. When you said that, I was like, that's a damn good point.
And yeah,
Like,
and hey, man, like he's not wrong.
yeah,
So
but it'll be interesting. But
yeah.
who knows, man?
Besides the co-main, this is it's now my second, you know, it's the second fight on the card that I'm like most pumped about.
My God, wait till yeah. Oh man, and it kicks off the main card. It's one of those fights. It's perfect. It's the perfect fight to start a main card like this one.
Yeah.
It really is. Because
And-
you're looking at this fight. You're looking at it all. If you switch those ones we just mentioned, Bueno Silva, Macy Chasen, Gary Page, if you switch that and they kick off the card, it's not a disrespect to them at all. This card, it's different when a card starts in that fashion. Same way with like the featured prelim. Like when you have a crazy like you could see. Well, imagine what if Joe Pfeiffer has a big knockout win in the featured prelim, and it gets people that are like, oh, I want to watch this. It gets people to order the pay-per-view that might not have, or get excited for it that they might not have.
Yeah.
Like when you watch the prelim fights, and I think where you put some of these fights on the card is important in a lot of ways too.
Well, and we're an hour 15 in, so we should wrap it up soon. But before we do, like you've been saying for the last like month, you'd be like, they should put Peyton Talbot as the first card on the main, or at least the main event on the prelims. You could put
Yes.
a lot of these fights pretty much anywhere. I mean, there's so many things. Dude, Joe Pfeiffer, that fight, Cub Swanson, Andre Feely, Peyton Talbot, Michelle Watterson.
I would showcase him.
Andre
if I was the
Arlovsky,
UFC.
Ricky Simon, yeah, like all these, like there's so many great fighters and fights on this card. Man, I wouldn't want the job to figure out who to put
Oh God, yeah,
where,
dude.
whatever. So, dude, it's great.
Yes, no, you have. We'll do more. It's probably a good way to do it. Like you said, it's going long and all that, so we can really get into a lot of the prelim bouts tomorrow in the post. Because
Yeah.
we'll be talking about because what happens that's big, what's notable. But one that is notable that talk about where you put these fights. The first fight of the night. Um, I know Ricky Simone is a super talented UFC fighter who's been around a while, but this newcomer Vinicius Oliveira, did you see his last fight?
Oh, wait, real
That
quick. Did I tell you that the dude that I invite over for the fights now, my friend Brian, one of his good friends from high school is Ricky Simone's weight coach or whatever, strength and conditioning coach.
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's pretty cool because they're from Vancouver, Washington. Ricky
Oh,
Simone,
that's cool.
he trained out of
Ricky Simone's a
Vancouver.
beast, dude.
Yeah, yeah.
That fight is going to be very interesting. Because you don't know until you see him in there with a guy like Ricky Simone. You don't really know because I don't know if he's fought someone at that caliber quite yet. I know he is new in the UFC, but he had a crazy knockout in his it was a third round. It was like what I think it was like a jump flying knee. The way he landed, it was unreal. But
Oh,
he is coming off
yeah.
3 in a row knockouts, so that could be an interesting fight because he's going to bring exactly what Ricky Simone wants. And a guy like Ricky Simone coming off 2 losses, he also wants to put a stamp on it. So that man, that fight is intriguing to me. We can, like I said, we can get into all these tomorrow when we do the post, but this is one of those like quintessential cards where this is the reason why I like watching the first fight on. It's these type of cards where
Yeah,
like there's
yeah.
really not much of a weakness and there's
Yeah.
plenty of meat on these bones, Jim. So um, with that said,
Yeah,
take
with
it
that
home,
said,
baby.
we should wrap this one up. We got to get some. You know what? I might get some mules tonight.
Ooh.
I know that's your drink, but I'm feeling it.
Oh, do it. Oh, dude, they're fantastic. Squeeze a little lime in that bitch.
Yeah.
They're great. You have to have the cup, though. You have to get one of them cups
And
eventually.
and when you come out here, if you come out here, depending on what we do, there's some good ginger beers out here you might like.
Unreal. I'm sold.
Have you had Cock and Bull?
But, Is
that out there?
I don't think so. What is it called again, Jim?
It's called Cock and Bull.
Jesus. I think it's a cock and balls. I was like,
Close enough.
no, I don't think I've heard that one.
It's pretty good. There's another
Okay,
one
nice.
too that I looked up for you, but
I think
yeah.
Gosling's a big one that I always seem to find a lot places. In Fever Tree,
No,
I believe it's
never
called.
See, this is
I
East
don't know
Coast,
if that,
West
yeah.
Coast. We're having a battle here.
Yeah, dude, I didn't know ginger beers were like this, you know?
I thought there was only like
But
3 ginger beers in the world. Now
it's funny
this,
too because we're like this episode's going long. We're like, anyway, let's talk about ginger beer for 15 minutes.
yeah, let's get a couple drinks. We're gonna have a good night, man. To everyone
Hell yeah.
listening, thank you for the support as always. Share, subscribe, or don't, whatever.
Yeah, no.
Follow us on Instagram if you got time. It's our username is at Pinnacle_combat. You can find our YouTube channel, which all these podcasts are posted on, at the same name, at Pinnacle Combat Sports. Wait, sorry, at Pinnacle_combat.
Mhm.
And yeah, we're so pumped for the fights. We're gonna do another episode tomorrow, the post episode. We hope you enjoyed. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
Absolutely. Peace.